Dude, just get a Steam Deck has been the handheld community's favorite answer for years. And for a while, it was kind of hard to argue with. The deck did enough things right at the right price that its compromises felt pretty easy to accept. But handheld PCs are getting expensive.
That's a little rich for my blood.
And once these devices start creeping into premium territory, the question changes. It's no longer, is this a good value? But rather, does this still make sense? So before we get into this, I want to be clear, this is not a don't buy a Steam Deck video. The Steam Deck is still great. It's still my favorite device, and if you already have one, nothing about this conversation suddenly makes your handheld worse. It still plays Cyberpunk, it still plays Balatro, and it still plays Sectori. But buying one right now is a different conversation than it used to be. When I think about the word value, I'm not just talking about price, I'm talking about what you're getting for that price. And for a long time, that's what made the deck such an easy recommendation. It gave you enough of the right things for the right amount of money that its compromises felt pretty reasonable. But as these prices keep moving around, and not just with the deck, but with handheld PCs in general, those compromises become a lot harder to ignore. So in this video, I want to talk about why the Steam Deck became the default answer in the first place, how handheld PCs became a lot harder to justify, and why every option now comes with its own trade-offs. Thanks for being here, buds. Let's get into it. So the reason Dude Just Get a Steam Deck caught on is pretty simple. For a while, it was just the easiest, safest answer. And it's not like handheld PCs didn't exist before the Steam Deck. They definitely did. There were devices from GPD, Ioneo, 1xPlayer, and a bunch of other companies making some pretty cool stuff. But most of them felt like enthusiast devices. They're the kind of thing you bought because you already knew what TDP meant, which, to be clear, respect.
RESPCT.
But for a normal person who just wanted to play their Steam library on the couch, like me, that was a bit of a harder sell. But the Steam Deck felt different because it made this whole thing feel approachable. You had SteamOS, your Steam library, comfortable design, solid battery life, suspend and resume, trackpads, a huge community, and eventually, with the OLED model, a screen that made a very convincing argument for buying the same handheld twice. I know some of you are out there, a few of you probably in the Discord, which, by the way, if you're not in the Discord, join the Discord. But the bigger thing is that the deck felt like Valve understood that a handheld PC cannot just be a tiny desktop with joysticks. It has to be something you want to grab when you're tired, on the couch, and you only have 40 minutes before you should probably go to bed. The deck is great at that, and for the price, it became really hard to argue against because the Steam Deck was never the most powerful device. It was just the one where, that trade-off made sense. You accepted the older performance because the rest of the experience was so strong and the price made that feel fair. But that kind of deal only works when things stay in balance. Because the moment the price moves, the whole conversation moves along with it. And recently, well, the price moved. When it comes to content creation, you can have a nice camera and good lighting and a clean setup and all that stuff, but none of that matters if you sound rough. Just look at my last stream. Ugh. And that doesn't apply to just videos and streams. Sometimes you just want to talk trash to your buds on Discord without sounding like you're talking through a fast food drive-thru.
Hi, welcome to Burger King. May I take your order?
This is the Maono PD100W wireless dynamic microphone, and you're hearing it right now. What I love about it is how simple it is. It uses a 2.4 gigahertz wireless connection so you can keep your desk clean without adding yet another cable to the forbidden pile behind your desk. It has an 82 decibel signal to noise ratio, so your voice stays clear without a bunch of hiss or static underneath it. It's also got built-in AI noise cancellation and 7-layer noise reduction, so your voice is isolated and you don't have a bunch of background noise in case your room isn't exactly treated like a studio or something. Mine is not. My upstairs neighbors drive me insane, but you guys would never know it. To demonstrate that noise cancellation, this is my phone playing some background noise. As you can see, you can hear it pretty well. And this is with the noise cancellation turned on. It's a pretty big difference. You can also use the Maono Link app on desktop or mobile to dial in EQ, tone, access the built-in recorder. You can also send audio through wired and wireless connections at the same time, which is handy if you want more flexibility for streaming, recording, or maybe keeping a backup track. And with up to 40 hours of battery life, you can be sure it's enough battery to last you through your Euro Trip Simulator marathon streams. And finally, it's got customizable RGB. Enough said. So whether you're streaming, podcasting, recording, or you just want to sound better with your buds, the PD100W is a simple plug-and-play way to level up your audio without making things more complicated than it has to be. If you want to check it out, I've got links below. Huge thanks to Maono for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to it. After being unavailable in most regions for months, Valve finally restocked the Steam Deck. And then everyone saw the prices. The 512GB OLED jumped up significantly. The 1TB OLED jumped up even more. And And in one fell swoop, the Steam Deck was no longer the obvious answer. Once that price starts moving closer to other devices within the same price range that have newer chips, more power, or just a different set of strengths, you're asking, does this still make sense compared to everything else I could buy for similar money? And that's where making recommendations for you buds gets hard, because the base ROG Xbox Ally is a much more interesting comparison, and I didn't think we'd ever see the day. It's cheaper than the 512GB Steam Deck OLED, has almost the exact same performance, and has a faster display, albeit LCD. Now it is still Windows, so, bring snacks. But at that price gap, it becomes a real consideration. And then there's the Ally X, which does push higher at $999, but that's also where the Steam Deck's 1TB OLED price gets a little fuzzy, because now you're looking at a much more powerful device for almost the same amount of money. Now, it's not like that automatically makes it the better choice for everyone, but it does kind of complicate the Steam Deck value argument, And here's the thing, Valve is not alone in this. This whole category has become expensive. The Legion Go S is actually one of the saddest examples because I really love that device. Last holiday season, I thought it was the choice to buy because of the Black Friday prices, and honestly, I would have instantly recommended it as a go-to today had the Z1 Extreme model not increased in price by nearly $700. Wild. Then you look at devices like the Legion Go 2 or some of these ultra premium handhelds, and suddenly I start feeling like I need a second mortgage. And even Android handhelds are starting to feel a little bit of that pressure too. AYN had already announced price increases for devices like the Thor and the Odin 3, and Retroid bumped the Pocket 6 while also pulling back on one of its higher end configurations for a short while, and it was a prime reason I didn't buy one. So this is not just a Steam Deck problem, it's a handheld problem. And I think that that's kind of what's most frustrating about this whole space right now. The devices, they keep getting better, but the value keeps getting harder to position. A device can be good and still be hard to recommend. So we've already established that we can't really talk about handhelds like there's one declared winner anymore. And I'm not gonna sit here and break down every handheld on the market because one, we'd be here all day, and two, 3 more would probably be announced with names that sound like Wi-Fi passwords. But I do think the headliners, so to speak, are pretty clear now. If you want the most console-like handheld PC experience, I think the Steam Deck is still probably the cleanest option. SteamOS, suspend and resume, yada yada. At this point, we all know why the Steam Deck is so beloved. But you're also buying into an older performance ceiling, so if your plan is to keep up with newer AAA games over the next few years, you have to be okay with more settings tweaks, lower expectations, and the word playable doing some very heavy lifting. Because according to Reddit, that word can mean a lot of different things. If you want more power or fewer compatibility walls, then I think the Ally starts to make a little more sense. The base ROG Xbox Ally looks a lot more interesting now next to the deck's new pricing, and the Ally X becomes a real conversation if you're already looking near that 1TB deck OLED price. You get more flexibility, broader launcher support, and on the X a lot more powerful hardware. But you're also accepting Windows on a handheld, and even when that works well, it still adds a bit more friction than SteamOS does. Now it can be worked around. I know that installing Bazite is a pretty common solution, but that experience still is a bit more friction than some people want to deal with.
No, don't like that.
And with Lenovo, do you like money? I'm kidding, but also I'm kinda not. The Legion Go S Z1 Extreme is a very good device that offers both reasonable power and SteamOS, and while the Legion Go 2 is pretty damn large, it's insanely powerful. But for most people, the trade-off for each of these is pretty obvious. These prices are not realistic. Cool devices, hard sell. And then outside of handheld PCs, the Switch 2 and Android handheld devices start to become a lot more relevant in a way maybe they hadn't before. I talked all about the Switch 2 in my last video. It's the most affordable option, honestly, and it's getting great support and gives you the simplest experience, but you're buying into Nintendo's ecosystem, and that ecosystem is charming but closed off. It's also extremely aware of what it can charge for Mario. Android is almost the opposite. It's not trying to be your whole PC library, even though it's getting pretty damn close. If what you mostly want is retro games, emulation, streaming, great battery life, and something small to toss in a bag, Android might actually make the most sense. But that has a downside as well. It comes with a lot of setup and know-how that the average gamer doesn't have time or patience for, and if what you really want is native PC gaming, Android is not going to become a Steam Deck just because the price feels nicer. And I guess that's what I mean by trade-off tax. Every one of these is asking you to buy into a different kind of experience and a different kind of annoyance. I just don't think just get a Steam Deck is the right answer anymore. And maybe it still is for a lot of people, and I respect that. You know, if I had to give up all the devices I own and keep one, it would still be the Steam Deck. It is, without a doubt, my favorite device. But I also got mine almost 3 years ago at almost % less. So if I had to make a decision today, I truthfully don't know that it would be that easy. All I know is that at these prices, you deserve to know what you're choosing, what you're giving up, and whether those trade-offs make sense to you. So where does that leave the Steam Deck? I don't think the Steam Deck is bad now. I don't believe that at all, actually. It's still one of the most important gaming devices of the last decade, and for a lot of people, it still might be the right handheld to buy. But the trade-offs need a little more thought. Maybe you still want SteamOS and the simplest handheld PC experience. Maybe you want more power. Maybe you want Nintendo's simplicity. Or maybe you want Android because you don't need a handheld PC in the first place. The great thing is that none of those answers are wrong. You just deserve to know what you're choosing before you spend the money. But if you've looked at all the options, you understand the trade-offs, and what Valve's offering is still the one that feels right, then maybe just get a Steam Deck.